Gather round the fire, friends, because I've got one wild story to share with you all tonight. It's about the inner workings of a notorious motorcycle club out there that's had folks talking for decades. The Hells Angels. History of the Hells Angels. Now, these guys have gotten quite the reputation over the years, both good and bad. Some see them as a bunch of dangerous, lawless bikers, while others view them as a tight-knit brotherhood of free-spirited rebels. Whichever side of the fence you fall on, there's no denying the Hells Angels have carved out a legendary status in American culture. Let me take you back to where it all began, the late 1940s in good old Fontana, California. That's where the modern Hells Angels Motorcycle Club got its start, founded by a guy named Otto Friedli. Now, the exact origins are a bit murky, since there were actually a few different motorcycle clubs using the Hells Angels name popping up around that time. But this particular incarnation is the one that went on to become the infamous group we know today. See, after World War II, there were a ton of surplus motorcycles out there, and a lot of veterans were looking for some excitement and camaraderie, so they started forming these motorcycle clubs, and the Hells Angels was one of the biggest. They got their name from the fighter squadrons of World War I and II that played on the irony of the phrase Hells Angels. And you'll notice they leave out the apostrophe. They say that's intentional, since there are many different types of hell out there. Personally, I think they just like the rugged, badass sound of it. Anyway, the group really started to take shape in the late 50s, when a founding member named Ralph Sonny Barger helped establish the Oakland, California chapter. And of course, Hollywood was quick to pick up on these outlaw biker gangs and romanticize them in movies like The Wild One with Marlon Brando. So the Hells Angels and similar clubs started gaining all kinds of notoriety and attracting new members left and right. Becoming a Hells Angel. These days, the Hells Angels have spread their wings, so to speak, and have chapters all over North and South America, Europe, Russia, and Australia. They're estimated to have several thousand full patch members worldwide. And let me tell you, getting that full patch or membership ain't easy. It's a long, arduous process with some pretty strict requirements. First off, you gotta have a valid driver's license and your own working motorcycle. Can't have any history of trying to become a cop or prison guard either. Oh, and they definitely don't want any child molesters in their ranks. Beyond that, you've got a few different stages to go through. You start out as a hang-around, just someone who's allowed to attend some club events and get a feel for things. If the members take a liking to you, you might get bumped up to associate status. That means you're a little more involved, but still don't have any real decision-making power. Next up is prospect. This is where the club is seriously considering bringing you on. As a prospect, you can participate in club activities, but you still can't vote on anything. And you better believe they're keeping a close eye on you, making sure you can handle the lifestyle and are a good fit. If you make it through all that, then you can finally achieve the coveted full patch status. That's when you get to don the famous Hells Angels Death Head logo, the Hells Angels rocker patch on top, and the location patch on the bottom. You're an official card-carrying member now, able to call all the shots. Hells Angels. Menace or misunderstood. Now, the authorities have long painted the Hells Angels as a ruthless criminal enterprise. They're constantly accusing the club of being involved in everything from drug trafficking and prostitution to murder and intimidation. And they've certainly got the rap sheets to bring it up in some cases. I mean, you've got members like Christopher Wayne Hudson, who pleaded guilty to shooting a guy dead after some bystanders tried to intervene in a fight he was having with his girlfriend. Or Sonny Barger himself, the Oakland chapter co-founder who spent 4 years in federal prison for conspiring to blow up a rival gang's clubhouse. The Hells Angels website even has a whole page dedicated to members who are currently serving prison time, though they don't really get into the details of why. So the authorities aren't exactly painting an inaccurate picture here. There's definitely a dark criminal element to this group, but the Angels themselves would tell you a different story. They claim they're just a bunch of misunderstood outcasts being persecuted by the man. They say when they do good deeds like charity rides and donation drives, nobody seems to remember. But whenever some of their members get in trouble, that's all anyone wants to focus on. The way they see it, their nonconformist lifestyles and beliefs make them targets for law enforcement. And they've got a point. The Hells Angels have been the focus of constant police scrutiny and harassment over the years. So, in their minds, they're just a fraternity of free-spirited bikers who like to ride loud Harleys, not a ruthless gang of criminals. Hells Angels around the world. Now, whether you buy that or not, there's no denying the Hells Angels have managed to spread their influence far and wide. They started out in California, but before long, they had established chapters all over the world. New Zealand was actually the first country outside the U.S. to get an official Hells Angel chapter, way back in 1961. Then London became the first European foothold for the group in 1969, when George Harrison of the Beatles invited a couple San Francisco members over. And from there, the Hells Angels have continued their global expansion. And with that expansion has come plenty of conflict and violence, as the Angels have battled rival biker gangs over territory and criminal enterprises. Take the Quebec Biker War in Canada, for example. That was an 8-year turf war between the Hells Angels and a group called the Rock Machine that ended up killing over 150 people, including innocent bystanders. In Europe, these rivals have led to the use of heavy weaponry like machine guns, grenades, and rocket launchers. So clearly, the Hells Angels aren't your average run-of-the-mill motorcycle club. They've carved out a seriously notorious reputation, both good and bad. And whether you see them as a menace to society or a misunderstood brotherhood, there's no denying the enduring mystique and influence of this iconic outlaw biker gang.